I'm David from Wired, from London. I like Lisbon. It's the second time I've been here in 2 months. And I'm here to talk to Sumon, who is bringing a San Francisco-based business to Lisbon because he sees big opportunities. Sumon, tell us a bit about your business, Muse.ai.
So Muse is focused on organizing one of the world's largest data sets, which is video, and creating a new way for search and discovery inside of that content.
So it's an artificial intelligence business that's allowing anybody to search video, large amounts of video, to find particular clips, particular phrases, particular emotional nuances.
That's right. By using AI to understand the nature of the content, what people are speaking, what you see, motion, vision, you can start to organize video in a different way.
Which is a big problem. And before we talk about the detail of how you're addressing that problem, talk about this international transfer of talent. So it's a San Francisco-born business.
San Francisco-born business, obviously with international aspirations with respect to the audience that we want to serve. And we're building an AI lab here in Lisbon.
So your team, who I've just gone to see, is in an apartment round the corner from here. Why have you brought a lot of the core work of Muse to Lisbon?
Lisbon is a really great place to focus if you're building deep technology. And Lisbon is an incredibly creative environment with respect to the colors, the streets, music. It's a place where it allows us to really focus on the technology problem that we're solving in a way that we can't be distracted. And it also reminds me a lot of San Francisco with respect to the environment and what's coming.
And what sort of skill sets are you recruiting in Lisbon?
So our focus is on applied mathematicians who will work with building algorithms, neural networks. So we're for example, we're converting geoscientists into AI researchers, and we're focused on sort of that researchers in speech and vision and emotion and sound and video.
But there are lots of these skill sets inside San Francisco. What's the plus of moving 9,000 miles away?
I think what's interesting is the Portuguese engineering mentality is something that is distinctive in that. There's sort of the focus on creatively problem solving, or desenho rascar. There's a strong mathematical base. There's a real sort of focus on applied problem solving, and so and also it means that you can build a substantial team focused on that without the fear of poaching, which is one of the big things of the environment in San Francisco right now.
I guess there's also a cost advantage. I imagine with wages in San Francisco and the Valley as high as they are, it's probably proportionately a bit more affordable to build a team here.
It's more affordable, and I think it allows you to be more ambitious with respect to how you build a team. The kind of work that we're doing involves so many disparate strands of AI research together that we couldn't do it at the scale that we want to do it without this kind of cost advantage.
Give us an idea of the multiples of salary in San Francisco for similar jobs to here.
I think that at least 5x, sort of what?
5 times the salary for AI machine learning specialists, for engineers in San Francisco compared with Lisbon.
Yep.
Does that mean, do you think, we're going to get a wave of other US and maybe Northern European companies building labs over here?
Portugal is already a place where many of the world's largest companies have built R&D organizations, and I think for deep applied technology, this is the right type of environment to do so. And so, yes, I think that we'll see a lot more movement towards towards being here, not just because it's a cheap place to be, but also it's an environment that fosters, the type of long-term thinking that's required for these types of projects.
So you're an unusual distributed company. Your co-founder, Antonio, speaks Portuguese from Macau, so he's spending a fair amount of time over here with the team. You're basing yourself still on the West Coast, or are you going to base yourself here?
I'm still going to be based on the West Coast, but spend increasing amounts of time sort of in Lisbon.
And is that because you need to be where the investors are?
I think that there are advantages of being in both places. One, sort of raising capital and staying close to the ground with respect to what's happening in technology broadly, and then the Lisbon location gives us focus to execute, which is often difficult in an environment that's so noisy.
San Francisco, though, has a much more mature ecosystem. Presumably, you can get stuff done even if you have to pay more. What are the frustrations you've experienced so far in Lisbon?
With every frustration, it's an opportunity to create a solution. So we found that engineers and scientists here require a little bit of training, but there's a lot of knowledge that we can impart in order to bring them up to a standard. I think that's in part inspired by the willingness of there's a real drive to learn and to become better because of the nature of the types of jobs that are here. So we find there's real drive to learn, which means that this sort of training or academy type approach makes sense.
You aren't just a founder, you're a serial founder, you're an investor. You've built some companies, you've been through Y Combinator about 8 years ago. What do you think a Y Combinator education has given you?
I think it's focused on the fundamentals. There are only a few activities that, as a company, you should be doing in the early stages. You should be talking to users, you should be building product, and you should eat, sleep, exercise, and spend time with your loved ones. And that's basically the Y Combinator, essence is remove all of these other distractions when you're trying to build these things. Focus on the fundamentals. Focus on product, and then everything else sort of goes away. So it's that sort of focus. It's the ability, to work out of apartments, to be in a very sort of scrappy, focused mode at the beginning, and later on, it's how to tell a story and how to go and raise more money.
Is the value of Y Combinator the education, or is it more about the network of people that are built around you?
It's the network. The network is incredibly benevolent. Like Paul Graham's initial focus was mainly to liberate talented founders from jobs where they could be focused on building their own thing. That's how PG reached out to me in the summer of 2007. He'd heard my name from previous founders from the UK that he'd backed. He actually recognized my name on the Seed Camp website. So I was part of the original advisory board of Seed Camp, and helped sort of shape.
Seed Camp being the London-based fund and incubator that brings talent from around Europe.
Yep, and so here I was on the board of Seed Camp, defecting to move to San Francisco. And I think the first thing is that Paul Graham recognizes talent and is able to give them the belief that their abilities, sort of, when you combine that belief together with people's abilities, you end up. We had the permission to go build, a company on the West Coast, and it was because he believed in us, and that was a very different feeling. 5 months before that, we were students in London.
Tell us about that company and its journey. So,
Snap Talent was the first recruitment ad network. We as students observed that the way that our behavior online was different. We weren't. What if you could put recruitment ads on the sites that people actually visited versus on job sites? Because we'd seen this bifurcation, and so we were sitting with Paul Graham in a cafe, and actually it was in East London, and he misinterpreted something we said. And he sort of repeated back, well, maybe you guys should build the AdSense for jobs. And it's like, okay, that's very interesting. As a concept, we built an early prototype, and within sort of 6 weeks, we'd launched that and sort of made revenue inside of Y Combinator. And within sort of weeks of that, we'd raised $1.5 million, which at the time was a lot of money for companies coming out of Y Combinator. We'd raised money from, so along the way, I'd met a lot of the speakers, and my goal as a founder, because we had to leave the country after 3 months, so ended up meeting a lot of the speakers and getting them to invest. So that involved people like Chris Sacco, who were in his sort of first fund, early Googlers like Aidan Senkert of Felicis, Andrea Zurek, who was the first saleswoman of Google, Paul Buchheit, who created Gmail, Garrett Camp, when he did StumbleUpon, before he did Uber, Saul Klein, who had known me from the Seed Camp days, Jeff Clavier from Softtech. So we ended up raising sort of a superstar round, and then having to battle to get visas to get back in the country, which destroyed a little bit of progress. But that was a...
And what happened long-term with Snap Talent?
So we ended up having to shut down the company because of a board ultimatum. Ultimately, it was a very difficult decision. We had $1 million in the bank, but because of a disagreement with the board and disagreement
internally. Approached a bunch of the most influential people in the Valley, persuaded a number of them to put cash into the business, and then you couldn't deliver on what you thought they were expecting. How did it feel to say, sorry guys, we're shutting down the company?
So I have to admit that I didn't want to shut down the company. But ultimately, what you learn is, so I went back to the office and sat down with my co-founders, and they decided that they didn't want to continue. And it's at that moment that you realize, well, we really have to be in this together. Otherwise, there's no point sort of continuing. So I think it was very humbling. And it's not an easy decision to go shut down something that you start. Especially if it's your first venture.
But they do have an attitude in the Valley that's spreading gradually to Europe, that if you haven't built something that hasn't worked, you're not ready to build the one that will work.
That's true. And so that was a 2-year process. We'd built 4 versions of the product.
But then you built something else.
Yeah. Then I helped start a company called Quid.
Quid is a kind of automated intelligence gatherer.
Quid is focused on reading is an activity that's very expensive, especially when you're doing research. And when you can have a machine read natural language and you can sort of organize the connections between ideas, you can essentially map any complex topic. And so Quid is software that automates knowledge work and is sort of used by the world's leading Fortune 500s, and Quid's a very successful sort of SaaS business that we built over 6 years. But that also had many moments where we almost ran out of money sort of 3 times. But we had many incidents of team instability. But this time around, we were very determined to get it to the point of success.
So let's jump forward to your current business, Muse, in which I have to declare an interest, because I met you a couple of years ago and I made an early stage investment because I thought there was something ambitious happening here. What's the ultimate vision?
So I've always been obsessed with systems that can augment our ability to see the world, and memory is one of those sort of faculties in the brain. How do we, if we took all of the world's video, so when you recall an incident, when we recall the first time we met, what are you doing in your mind? You're recalling an episode, and you're playing it back, and you're able to sort of do that perfectly. And so if we could do that with all of the world's digitized video, we can extend human memory. And there'll be a time where we're recording our lives. There'll be a time where we can recall, huge archives of historical. We sit here in the Library of Sciences, and what if we could recall everything that was recorded? What does that do to the way that what does that do to memory? And so if the goal is, what we're really focused on is extending memory.
So this is a world where every self-driving car has a dash cam, every person has a button that's recording things. So it's essentially a machine learning challenge, I guess. Mm-hmm. You have to work out how to recognize particular sounds, particular images in terabytes, petabytes of data.
Yeah, and the system has to be self-adjusting. As it encounters more and more video, it needs to get better and better in doing that. So
that sounds like a tough challenge.
It's a complex coordination problem. It requires a team that understands not just the algorithms, but the systems, as well as how you bring that to end users in a very consumable fashion. So it's a multi-stage problem.
Who is the user of this?
So the first focus will be on the end consumer.
So I will use an app that you produce on my phone to search for all the video I've created, or search for YouTube?
It's going to be searching a library of video content, like ideally the archives of video content that exist.
So I will say, find the video of the dinner party where we talked about sangria.
Or you would say, find me, every time innovation's been talked about in Lisbon, and it would look at the video, index the video online, and allow you to recall those specific moments.
How long until you have a product?
So we've built 2 versions of the product to date, which have been prototypes of an end-to-end search system, and we hope to have something in testing before the end of the year.
Is there anything people here can play with? Is there like a beta version?
We have some stuff that is worth trying, but not yet.
Okay. And you're keeping quite stealthy. You're not making a noise.
Because I think when you say that you want to organize the world's video, people's natural reaction is skepticism or asking the question about other people doing that. I think the best way for us to do this is to show people that we can solve this problem, and that we have a non-intuitive approach to solving the problem. And so the product will speak for itself, I think, is the focus.
And again, the universities in this region you see as producing the right kind of talent that can help you solve this ambitious problem.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think there's a real desire to solve, new types of challenges. The type of work we've been told that the work that we're doing is the most interesting work that people have had a chance to do from an AI perspective, and there's a real base of talent that we can leverage.
So Sumon doesn't give too much away. He's quite secretive about things. But we can take any questions from the room, and you can ask him as many times as you want to give away the secret algorithm, or indeed anything else. If you want to ask Sumon anything, just put your hand up and a microphone will find you.
From sector clubs. So I would actually see that in your business you're going to hit a problem that there's a lot of privacy-sensitive data about the people in these videos that you analyze. So do you have like a strategy for dealing with that, or is it a threat for you?
I think the focus is to focus on public video, and as a way to start. We're really more focused on the idea that you can organize knowledge in video versus focused on private video. So that's the way that we think about that.
So the assumption is, I guess, these will be your videos, your family videos, your workplace videos. There's a hand over here.
Hi, Sumon. On the hiring front, right? one of the things that really made Berlin stand out as kind of a second ecosystem in Europe has been how engineers and talent have moved from various cities into Berlin. Are you seeing that happening in your hiring efforts vis-a-vis Lisbon?
Yeah, so we've been able to move people over from San Francisco. We've been able to move. It's actually an incredibly desirable city for engineers and designers from abroad to come to. And I think that the virtues of Lisbon, both as a place to live, as a creative environment, as somewhere where people can really focus, as well as have a sustainable living, because startups are intense. And if you're simply in a very intense environment all the time, then that's detrimental to your health. And so I think that Lisbon is an incredibly attractive city to live, and we're starting to see people from Germany, from London, from the US, all start migrating here, and that melting pot is going to be created in the same way that Berlin has been done.
So Sumon, time is running out. I just got one final question. We've got some of the smartest people in the Lisbon ecosystem here. If you could ask for one thing from this crowd to help accelerate Lisbon's progress to be the sort of place that, like San Francisco, incubates some of the world's most ambitious, most successful companies, what would you ask them for?
I think create a new normal. So the idea that the West Coast was famous because you could take massive risks, and the idea that you want to bring the Hyperloop, or you want to bring drones or automated cars to Lisbon, like how radical can we be? Because there is no normal. By creating a new normal, I think that is how you can start to attract the sorts of talent that will, this can be the West Coast of Europe, if not the new West Coast, if we can create a new normal. And I think that's in everyone's interest to, when you enter Lisbon, you can think differently. Back home, back in Germany, back in France, back in London, you think in the confines of those environments. But this environment has no restrictions. And if the government is being ambitious, and if everyone here is being ambitious, how do we create a new normal? Because creating a new normal will create the kind of environment that will attract the most ambitious people in the world.
That's a great call to action. Thank you, Sumon Sadhu of Muse AI.
Cool. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.